Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. And where is it at the moment? Since you want to travel, when will it be available for purchase? It debuts on Tuesday. All right? In New York. And in Hollywood, you're working on it last. A single word has the power to elevate a performance from mediocre to outstanding. I'm going to get hurt. I promise not to do you any harm. This place is pain-free. Few people, Daniel, are more aware of this than Martin Scorsese, a director whose quest for cinematic excellence has shaped American cinema for more than 50 years. Scorsese has created tales that delve beyond the surface of humanity, revealing our deepest instincts and most desperate desires, from the gritty alleys of Taxi Driver to the lavish extravagance of The Wolf of Wall Street. Well, there were truthful components in many of the storylines I was using for my films. Many folks were still alive down there. However, his imaginative direction belies a temperament as erratic as the people he portrays. Even though Scorsese has cultivated renowned partnerships with actors like as Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, not all performers have been accepted into his inner circle. Others have been the objects of his legendary anger, subject to his rigorous standards and unyielding vision. Despite their success abroad, these actors were at odds with a filmmaker who expects nothing less than change from the people in front of his camera. Their disputes expose deeper issues in creative theory, in addition to professional ones. Cinema is a matter of what's in the frame and what's out, as Scorsese himself famously said. The sought endorsement that these 6 performers would never get, Scorsese's approval, was what stayed out of the frame for them, causing conflicts that sometimes permanently changed their career paths and echoed throughout Hollywood. Caan, James. James Caan was a perfect fit for Scorsese's universe of turbulent masculinity because of his explosive talent. However, their partnership on an unfinished project in the middle of the 1970s became legendary in Hollywood. Just after winning the role of Sunoni Corleone in The Godfather, during pre-production discussions for Italian American, a character study set in Little Italy in New York, Caan enthralled Scorsese with a seething passion. In a later infrequent interview with Film Comment, Scorsese recalled that there was something deadly about Jimmy. Although he possessed the authenticity I desired, his conception of the character was entirely at odds with what I had in mind. Tension increased during a well-known rehearsal in which Caan allegedly changed speech on the fly, causing Scorsese to burst into what the crew called a volcanic outburst. Only his type of improvisation was what he desired. There's creative, freedom, and then there's whatever the hell that was, Caan told The New Yorker years later. Within weeks, the idea fell apart, with Scorsese secretly informing associates that Caan was unfeasible and openly blaming creative differences. Despite having distinguished occupations, the two men kept a low profile for many years. In the history of film, their brief creative clash represents an intriguing what-if. Mark Wahlberg. One of the most intriguing creative disconnects in contemporary filmmaking is the conflict between Scorsese and Mark Wahlberg during the filming of The Departed. Wahlberg, who was cast as the erratic Staff Sergeant Dignam, embodied his characteristic Boston intensity in the part. However, it was said that Scorsese becoming more and more troubled with the actor's strategy. In a director's guilt interview, Scorsese mentioned that Mark possessed the athleticism and street cred I want for Dignam, but he disagreed with me regarding the character's inner existence. Tensions ran high on set as Dignam's swear-filled office scenes were being filmed. According to crew sources, Scorsese frequently cut takes, requesting a nuance that Wahlberg found difficult to provide beneath the character's combative facade. When everything about this guy cried out for more, he continued talking less and less, a production assistant who wished to remain nameless told Vanity Fair. When Wahlberg was nominated for the film's sole acting Oscar, a distinction that apparently shocked Scorsese himself, the irony of their feud became clear. Despite their professional public personas, Wahlberg was purposefully left out of consideration during later casting conversations for Shutter Island and The Wolf of Wall Street due to their intense backstage conflict. Sometimes an actor gives you exactly what audiences want rather than what the character needs, Scorsese later said to an NYU film student. Roberts, Julia. During pre-production for The Age of Innocence, Julia Roberts' brief encounter with Martin Scorsese's film universe exposed a basic incompatibility between America's most unyielding director and its sweetheart. Roberts was initially a candidate for the part of Countess Ellen Olins, which ultimately went to Michelle Pfeiffer, but she was entangled in Scorsese's painstaking historical preparation. Her brilliance had the potential to be a wonderful thing. After several years, Scorsese grudgingly agreed to make films every 3 months. However, she had a modern sense that I was unable to teach. Roberts allegedly questioned the physical constraints of period corsetry and Scorsese's insistence on genuine discomfort to inspire acting at a costume fitting, which was the tipping point. In order for me to comprehend the role, he needed me to practically stop breathing. Later, without specifically mentioning Scorsese, Roberts made a reference in a round table with The Hollywood Reporter. I suppose you would refer to it as method, directing. Roberts withdrew from consideration following an especially heated discussion on the character's cultural heritage. The event was discussed in industry circles as an instance of the conflict between the star's more instinctive approach and Scorsese's unyielding historical perspective. I need actors that can blend into another era for period pieces. Not ones who make other times feel like our own, Scorsese told the New York Times. O'Neill, Ryan. For the few witnesses at Scorsese's New York office in 1978, Ryan O'Neill's disastrous audition for Raging Bull was all the more stunning given his reputation for extraordinary on-screen charisma. O'Neill, fresh off his triumph in Barry Lyndon and Paper Moon, was briefly considered for the role of boxing anti-hero until Robert De Niro was cast as Jake LaMotta. I think that was the most awkward hour I've ever spent in casting. Thelma Schoon. Maker, his longtime editor, heard Scorsese's confession and subsequently told the tale for a retrospective on the history of film. He regarded the substance as though it were strange. O'Neill allegedly proposed softening LaMotte's scenes of domestic abuse in order to make the character more sympathetic, which caused the discussion to go south, a basic misinterpretation of Scorsese's unyielding viewpoint. Scorsese allegedly said, "If you're worried about likability, you're in the wrong room," before suddenly adjourning the meeting. O'Neill alluded to the incident in passing in his memoir, even though he never confirmed it outright. Some directors want raw ugliness. I've always believed audiences need a way in, a reason to care. The interaction came to represent the gap between Scorsese's brutal character studies and Hollywood's traditional starring males. "What I need is different from movie stars," Scorsese subsequently stated to American Film. "I need actors who are prepared to be hated." Ryder, Winona. One of the most subtly revealed yet illuminating conflicts in the director's career is Winona Ryder's run-in with Martin Scorsese's meticulous directing style during 1993's The Age of Innocence. Ryder was unable to reconcile her feelings for the character with Scorsese's vision after being cast as Mae Welland, the seemingly naive social bride whose steely resolve serves as the story's emotional counterpoint. In a reflection of his film commentary, Scorsese admitted that Winona had a luminous glow that was ideal for the camera. However, she resisted me because of Mae's introspection and her awareness of what she was doing to the Countess and Newland. Tension increased during the filming of the critical engagement scene at the Van der Luden home, where Scorsese reportedly stopped work for about 6 hours in order to force the writer to exhibit a certain kind of naive manipulation that she found difficult to exhibit. Martin would whisper to her for 20 to 30 minutes in between shoots, as production designer Dante Ferretti subsequently related. When the camera rolled, she would come out red-eyed and hear it again. Crew members noticed tense exchanges between the actress and director behind the scenes, especially after Mae revealed her pregnancy in the third act of the movie. In essence, it began with filmmakers merely attempting to produce their films. In a rare interview with Sight and Sound, script supervisor Martha Pinson disclosed that he desired something very special for these two movies, a flawless combination of Victorian formality concealing brutal inner warfare. In order to identify Mae's weakness, Winona sought to humanize her. Martin believed that diminished the character's strength. Despite receiving an Oscar nomination for her performance, Ryder was conspicuously missing from the film's commentary track in the majority of promotional activities due to their intense creative stress. Years later, Scorsese gave an unusually succinct response when questioned about possible future partnerships. Winona is excellent at some things. Maywellen needed something completely different. The fallout from their creative disagreement was evident when Ryder was never again given consideration for a Scorsese film, even though she remained well known in Hollywood. Martin admitted in Sandy Powell, a longtime colleague, that even when the outcome works on screen, sometimes the process of reaching a great performance is so difficult that you can't imagine repeating it. Jim Carrey. One of the most intriguing examples of creative incompatibility in Hollywood is Jim Carrey's close encounter with Martin Scorsese's film universe, a clash of brilliant improvisation and painstaking artistic vision that never advanced past pre-production. Carrey briefly worked on Scorsese's long-gestating Howard Hughes drama, which would finally become The Aviator in 1999, while penning the blockbuster hits Man on the Moon and The Truman Show. Originally intended as a more somber psychological analysis of Hughes's deterioration, the idea first captivated Scorsese as a demonstration of Carr's unrealized dramatic potential. At the time, Scorsese told Premiere magazine that Jim had a crazy energy that could perfectly depict Hughes's wonderful weirdness. However, it required highly specific channeling. An intense character session in Scorsese's New York office was the tipping moment. Production designer Dante Ferretti, who was there to talk about Hughes's changing surroundings, claims that Carrey had a wealth of improvised ideas on physically changing during Hughes's life. As Jim displayed these amazing bodily changes, Martin grew more and more silent. The room's temperature seemed to drop with each minute, Ferretti later stated in an interview with Film Architecture Quarterly. When talking about script adherence, the basic gap became apparent. Scorsese's approach required accurate dialogue delivery, but Carrey wanted to be free to find moments on her own. According to reports, Scorsese later told producing partner Barbara DeFina, "Jim's is undeniable, but it's not compatible with my process. There are two types of acting genius." Shortly later, the project came to a standstill while Scorsese reimagined the Hugh tale with Leonardo DiCaprio, and Carrey moved on to Bruce Almighty. Years later, when questioned about actors he wished he had collaborated with, Scorsese made an eye-opening comment at an NYU masterclass on film studies. Some performers construct their own universe since they are such unique talents. Actors that can completely inhabit mine are needed for my films. The unfulfilled partnership is evidence of the delicate chemistry that exists between the performer and the director. How a fundamental difference in creative processes can cause even exceptional talent to falter. In a 2015 interview, Carrey himself remarked philosophically that sometimes the best gift is a door that stays closed. The bonds between directors and actors are among the most important in the film industry. However, these relationships turn into bitter artistic battlegrounds in Scorsese's world. There is a commonality among the 6 actors who clashed with America's most renowned director. Extraordinary potential that, for some reason, did not fit his unyielding vision. Their disagreements highlight the core of Scorsese's theory, which holds that emotional forsaking must be married to technical accuracy. These creative tensions serve as a reminder of the demands of real artistic vision in an increasingly algorithm-driven economy. Not concession, but conviction on the verge of obsession. Click the subscribe button for more in-depth looks at the intriguing world of film if you liked this examination of cinematic conflict.